stuff. Okay. All right, Leloy, napahaba yung sa episode natin about confidential fund and corruption because, again, I know where you're coming from. I think you being based in the US, in UC Berkeley, it has made you probably more conscious about pushing back against Orientalist tropes.
Ano yung reputation ng university namin? Okay.
No. I mean, okay, I'll just say generally Filipino scholars in the US tend to be like that. And I'm sure you have dealt with a lot of nonsense, right? Ako kasi I'm more in the policy world, so I don't deal with as much as that. But I know, unfortunately, in the academic world, there's a lot of Orientalist tropes vis-a-vis the Philippines. And I'm very glad with what you're doing here. But yun nga, I just had to do a little bit nuancing kasi alam ko gagamitin ng mga haters natin. Oh, sabi ni Lele, wala pa problema sa corruption. Okay pala tayo.
Kahit anong pasakali mo.
Yeah, exactly. Now, woof. But you also being there in San Francisco, in California, let's talk about this, bro. Because over the past few weeks or so, I've been, constantly on the road. And one of the things that I listen to, one of the podcast things I've been listening to is this guy, Mustafa Suleyman, right? This fantastic guy, very much at the forefront of the artificial intelligence debate. I've been writing on artificial intelligence even pre-pandemic times, etc. So I was always a bit skeptical about technological disruption. I never bought the hype, even on the ChatGPT, all of that. I was always a little bit skeptical about whether this is going to really help, about the net benefits of that. But after listening to Mustafa Suleyman, especially someone who's actually not a programmer himself, but someone who's a semi-outsider is now insider, and the way he explains it in a kind of a very plain policy, progressive language even, medyo mas natakot ako eh. Kasi yung time frame also is very much shorter. He's looking at 3 to 5 years before this hits us. And the number that I heard from him is actually scarier than I thought. So what he's saying is that you have a 10x factor of improvement in terms of parameters and things that an AI can do every year. So every year, it's 10 times better than the year before. So it's like iPhone 2 mo is 10 times better than iPhone 1. Not 2 times better, not 3, but 10 times better. So can you imagine what's going to be AI in 3 to 5 years? Now, of course, natakot tayo because first of all, AI is threatening already journalism, who knows academic work, copywriting, even lawyers, accountants. But as a Filipino, I'm also worried about the impact it has on growth engines in the Philippines, including the BPO industry. Because already in India and Brazil, which are huge BPO powers also, there are also a lot of worries about how AI could replace a lot of, let's say, medium range skills that human beings are doing. Let's talk about that, bro, because you're closer to Silicon Valley than me. I mean, literally, geographically. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I'm close, but there is still some distance. So just some geography about the Bay Area. The Bay Area consists of San Francisco, which some Filipinos mistakenly call SFO. That's the airport. So it's not SFO, it's San Francisco. SFO is the airport. There's the East Bay, which is Berkeley, Oakland, and then deeper into the East Bay. And then there's the South Bay, and the South Bay is where Silicon Valley is. So may konting distansya. So South Bay, na dun yung Stanford, na dun yung Silicon Valley, na dun yung Facebook, and nandun din si Mustafa Suleyman. The driverless cars are actually in San Francisco, in SF. So that's the kind of world. It's actually a big place. So dito sa Berkeley, we don't interact with as many tech people as you would if you were, say, in the South Bay, which is where all that stuff is. But obviously top of mind ng lahat ng conversations, because one of the reasons why malakas ang tech dito sa area na to is because you have these two powerhouse universities that have terrific computer science programs and engineering programs at malaking startup culture. Of course, you have the main one when it comes to this, yung rival namin, yung Stanford, and then kami sa UC Berkeley, which also has a huge computer science program. Kaya even now sa San Francisco, there's a lot of urban blight there. There's a lot of homelessness. Maraming offices na closed. Ang dami pa rin dumarating na AI companies, and then there's a huge AI startup industry there right now because nandito pa rin yung engineers, and they know, they're betting on it, that in the future ito yung talagang magiging malaking business. And when we think of AI, a lot of people say ChatGPT, OpenAI, for example, pero hindi lang sila eh. So I was listening to Mustafa Suleyman nga, and
I heard 15,000 startups. I heard 15,000 startups. So OpenAI is just one of 15,000 out there.
Yeah. And yung kay Mustafa Suleyman, his is pangalan niya, ang ano niya is
Inflection?
Inflection
Yung
AI,
inflection, yeah.
Inflection AI, and yung chat program nila is actually PI, which is not very nice sounding for
Personal
Filipino.
intelligence. It's not,
Si PI.
it's not
So,
tatay.
hindi ito yung kaibigan ni Duterte na PI, ito yung AI na PI. So, kausapin niyo yung AI na PI, and actually interesting because ibang-iba yung personality ni PI kaysa kay ChatGPT. Si PI malambing, madaldal, nagjo-joke, at pwede mong kausapin about your problems. So, nagulat ako because parang actually the first thing I realized is that there's a kind of personality already to AI. At si PI is actually funny, and PI is actually supposed to be empathetic. Si ChatGPT is not empathetic, very formal, di ba? Ito parang katropa mo pag kinausap niyo. Tayo nyo, libre pa rin si PI ngayon eh. And then the other thing I did was nag-subscribe ako to GPT-4 and compared it to GPT 3.5. So I was asking GPT 3.5, the free version, to write me certain essays about Taylor Swift songs, about my favorite Taylor Swift song, Last Great American Dynasty, which is just a brilliant song. And I was prompting it to write me like really deep essays about the image of the parvenu in Taylor Swift. And it was decent at 3.5. I would say that would have been a B paper. Pagdating mo sa 4, I would have given that a B+. So, it's really, you feel the improvements. Yung 10x ngayon is believable.
10x is scary, right?
Yeah. Just play around with this AI and you'll feel it. You'll feel the real improvement. So, I have a question for you, Richard. Pagdating sa AI, and I know this is overly reductive, are you more optimistic or are you more afraid?
The paradox with me is I'm a technophobe, and yet I constantly try to use the latest technology to make the most out of things. I mean, you can see what I'm doing, right? We're doing vlogging, Zooming. I'm both fascinated by new technology, and at the same time, I tend to be more skeptical about our ability to regulate things in the effective way in the right time, precisely because of, tingnan mo naman yung politika natin ngayon, diba? It's so hard to even agree on basic facts. So I understand you can make an argument that back in the day, I don't know, in the 1950s, Oppenheimer, all of that, everyone thought we'll have nuclear Armageddon. Well, it didn't happen. There was good diplomacy, Soviet Union, US. But I don't see that anymore. Ang gulo na ngayon eh. So I think one big influence on me is this great book by Moises Naim, the former publisher and founder of the Foreign Policy magazine. He was the finance minister of Venezuela. Brilliant guy. Very, very smart guy. The title of his book was The End of Power. So he wrote this around 20 years ago. And he looks at how, over the past half a century or so, it's increasingly hard to concentrate power and to build consensus because there's just more people, there's more mobility, there's more disagreement, there's more power for spoilers, right? So mas magulo yung physics of power, right? And if you look at it, people who have read and recommended the book are people from, I don't know, Bill Clinton to, I don't know, future AI tech company guys. So I've been hugely influenced by The End of Power book by Moises Naim, which I think is very, very helpful. And the more it makes sense. And also the AI superpowers, another fantastic book that I suggest guys to read. This is by Kai-Fu Lee, who is one of the founders, the guys behind Siri. So I've been into this for quite some time. Ang akin lang, the speed is a little bit too fast, faster than I thought. And I listened to
regulation won't be able to keep up.
I didn't know it's 10x. I thought it's probably 5x, 3x, 2x, and then I did an experiment the other month dun sa ChatGPT.
Hindi ba nakausap si PI? Hindi ka pa nag-PI?
Hindi ko pa ako nag-PI.
Mag-PI ka.
I know. I kept on listening kasi the idea of PI is he's like your beshi. It's like both pet and best friend and all of that. It's fascinating. I love the idea. I mean, diba, essentially they said we can have 4 types of relationship with AI, right? They're your pet, they are your best friend, and personal assistance for free probably. And third, they're your slaves. So that's where abusive relationship, kids, toddlers hitting their dolls and Barbie because and the fourth, we treat them as demigods, right? There are 4 types of relationship.
Inausap ko si PI about away ni Sara Duterte tsaka ni Martin.
Yeah, exactly. But bro, I definitely have to do that. Pero dun sa ChatGPT, something I found this kind of, kasi bro, I don't know if you watch yung documentary ni Warhol, yung artist.
Anti-world. No, I didn't see it.
So the entire thing is AI generated. His voice, so he narrates his own mentor. It's based on this is 3 years ago palang, and I was listening. Wow, this is going crazy. This is interesting. So that means you and I, Lelo, if we have enough materials online, down the road we can be immortalized in terms of our image and thoughts. So I just tested ChatGPT. I said, write something about, I don't know, Duterte populism as Richard Haydarian.
3.5 or 4? Were you on 3.5?
Wala pa ako dun sa subscription, dun sa free version pa lang eh.
Okay.
So the subscription should be even more accurate. But even the non-subscription wise was 60 to 70% accurate. And that was like at one point, like parang it's interesting, it's even narcissistically appealing, but at the same time it's like, wow, this is scary, you know? And if it's 10x yung ano niya, yung improvement niya in terms of parameters of information and nuance it can absorb, dude, I mean 2-3 years from now,
actually,
imagine what this thing is gonna look
Richard,
like.
Richard, the conclusion, I mean, tapos na talaga call center. Sooner than you think.
Kaya coming back to the Philippines,
tapos na ang BPO. So ito yung nakakatakot yan, di ba? Because di ba parang the trend now sa BPO is it's starting to sustain so-called secondary cities. I don't really call them secondary cities because they're great places like yung mga Iloilo, and then they're opening there. Just and this is a trend from the last 5-10 years, right? So just as nagko-consolidate yung BPO dyan, you're gonna pull the rug underneath from them. Because, I mean, just talk to ChatGPT as you would say a call center agent. Kaya na niyang sagutin lahat eh. Actually, I don't think you need to wait 5 years eh. Theoretically, kung mai-adjust nila yan for call center work, and if the talking becomes better, I mean, tomorrow pwede na yun. And actually, talking is already good because I don't actually type. Pag kausap ko si PI, pag nagpi-PI ako, kausap ko si PI eh. PI understands my voice, sinasagot ako.
Jesus.
So,
yeah, bro.
So, tapos na yung call center, kung ganyan nakaganda yung, I mean, just like, you don't need to be an expert to know this. Kausapin mo si PI tonight. Libre pa naman si PI ngayon. Kausapin niyo si PI tonight and tell me, our viewers, tell me if you don't think tapos na ang call center in a few years.
So this is essentially the Joaquin Phoenix Her, no? Yung movie na yan, no? Because yung bosses niya. It's Scarlett Johansson, right? I mean, this is crazy, bro. I mean, now I grew up hating science fiction and all of that. I just thought it's like kid stuff, dork stuff. I was the guy who would read about, I don't know, Saddam Hussein and Iraq War and Stalin. I was that kind of kid, right? I was really dork in that sense. But in the past 3-4 years, bro, purong science fiction. Like I go from one science fiction to another science fiction to another science fiction because science fiction is looking like a pre-produced documentary to me. Like it's insane, bro.
We're in the future. We're in the future. It's crazy.
Yung concepts of time, yung arc of time, it's different. Kaya let's talk a little bit about the spiritual implications of this, bro. But before that, let's talk about the Philippines first, no? Kasi we're
meron ako naisip na
dalawa. Ano pwede natin gawin sa Pilipinas?
I was meditating about yung effects ito sa Pilipinas. Unang-una, yari na yung call center. Pero pangalawa naisip ko, this has the capacity to really democratize education. Kasi I also have asked ChatGPT to tutor me in Spanish and to tutor me in macroeconomics. That's what I've been doing a lot. Kaya rin ako nag-upgrade to GPT-4. Ha? Si PI okay din. And then si PI actually ginamit ko to tutor me in how to conceptualize the jiu-jitsu simple sweep and the jiu-jitsu pendulum sweep. So he actually
You mean writing? In terms of like how is it?
You know how to think about it conceptually, yung jiu-jitsu pendulum sweep, like where's the leverage, where do you push, ganyan, whatever. So I've actually asked these bots to teach me certain things. So the nice thing about that is yung learning poverty natin sa Pilipinas. That's also a result of the fact that we don't have enough teachers and we don't have the best teachers coming into education, unlike other countries where you pay the best you pay better, so better people come into the teaching profession. But these are great teachers, and in a way, if once our students have access to this, this in a way democratizes great education. So I think that's a great thing for the Philippines, which has severe learning poverty. Although I really do think maraming, having been educated by these chatbots, I do think maraming mawawalan ng trabaho. Because, for example, I practice Spanish with ChatGPT all the time, and with PI. I used to pay someone online to talk to me in Spanish and practice with me. Now I do that with ChatGPT. And yeah, I save money. So that's one example of a teacher na nawala ng trabaho dahil doon. And, I kind of feel bad about it, but at the same time, it's a really great teacher. So it democratizes education, pero in the short term, dami talaga mawawala ng trabaho. I mean, I really think for people to understand what's going to happen in the future is just to try to do things with the AI as it's currently iterated. So for example, sa tingin mo ba mayayari ang high school teacher? Okay, try mo. Ask it to do something a high school teacher would do for you, and then see how well it works right now. I do think in the future, for example, college professors like us, mababawasan kami ng trabaho in terms of teaching, which will open up time for research. I think it's actually going to be
in that sense, yeah,
good for me. On a very selfish level. So it might benefit the educational system in the Philippines, but man, yung call center, yung BPO natin talagang, wow, talagang may taning na talaga ang buhay ng BPO natin, and we really have to move. So I still believe that we should move away from services. Like, I know everybody says we're a vibrant service economy that keeps us afloat. We need to focus on tradables more than ever. Tangible tradables, things that people need, material things that people need. That's how we're gonna beat this AI, unfortunately.
Aren't you worried about cheating in university and all of that, considering how good the ChatGPT can instantaneously come up with essays and all of that? I mean, I have my own techniques and strategies to fight against that, to make sure in my own classrooms. But ikaw, what are you looking at? Especially as if 10x yung level of sophistication, it can learn how you write.
Well, ako atinista ako eh. At sa Ateneo, ang laki ng premium placed. This was less in UP, I know, but Ateneo is all about the art of the oral exam. So I think babalik tayo dun sa old school Ateneo style na oral exam where you sit down. Very baduy yung image ng oral exam sa Ateneo. Uupo ka sa park bench with your philosophy teacher. Mag-uusap kayo for 10 minutes at mamimilisopia kayo. Magmemeron kayo in front of nature on that romantic hill in Ateneo. I think that kind of BS is not going to be BS
anymore. Well, yeah, good luck doing that.
Come back to the vengeance.
Ang thing ko naman kasi with oral examination is that it inherently favors certain people, I don't know, have more language proficiency, but not necessarily more intellectually competent, or people who put more effort into their work. You get what I'm saying? Like,
may mga bolero kagaya natin, Richard.
That's my problem. That's my problem. Swerte lang, bolero tayo so we can spot other boleros. But my problem is, madala yung iba dun sa mga maboka na hindi naman talaga nag-aaral, nadadala na lang sa stock knowledge at ang galing ng salita. And then, I know for a fact, there's some students from my experience na ang galing magsulat but not necessarily good when it comes to instantaneous communications and all, diba? I mean, you and I, we try to do both, right? We try to be good writers and good speakers as much as we can. It's not easy, but we're trying our best. But that's not the case with, a lot of people. For Lopez, either or, diba? Because people can become complacent. Maboka ako, bakit pa ako mag-aaral? I mean, you have to be me at some point in history. So I see a lot. So probably we'll have to continue this conversation, unfortunately, in a sense that feeling ko lalala itong problema na ito. But speaking of the Philippines, before we go to the last part of this episode and discussion.
Ikaw, sa tingin mo nangyari sa Pilipinas?
Alam, bro, I mean, for me, hindi na tayo pwede umasa lang Pilipinas. Again, BPO, you're right. Service industry, hindi. At the same time, thanks to AI, 3D printing, etc. But yung old school manufacturing, medyo nawawala na rin. So, nevertheless, my hope is the Philippines will make the most out of, I'm not very optimistic on China +1 strategy, meaning companies in the West moving away from China because of the trade wars, geopolitics, harassment of foreign companies. But I'm hoping at least kasama tayo sa Vietnam +1 or Thailand +1. And to be a little bit more ambitious, I even call it Taiwan +1 strategy. So from Taiwan, I'm hoping the Philippines can get into the supply chains for semiconductors. And dun sa Taipei, I was
Yun!
So, obviously, hindi natin kaya yung pinaka-high-end na lithographic, etc. I mean, just read Chip Wars, fantastic book. It tells you how complicated the high-end semiconductors, TSMC is. But, pwede tayo sa packaging. Pwede tayo sa design, right? pwede tayo dun sa above average intermediate level of semiconductors. Ang lapit natin sa Taiwan. Philippines could be the kind of a second line, right? Just in case Taiwan is overwhelmed, at least you have some of other semiconductors move further.
Overwhelmed or invaded.
Yeah, exactly. Like, kasi ito bro, ang problema, concern ko ganun is, ayoko maging Pearl Harbor lang ang Pilipinas. Kung saan, beshi tayo ng Australia, Japan, US, just as a military base. My sense is, we need to make something out of this economically because nakaka-hurt. Again, Vietnam envy, no? Have you noticed? I have more Vietnam envy than Singapore envy. Hindi naman. I mean, when Biden was there in Vietnam, he didn't bother to come to Jakarta for ASEAN Summit or to the Philippines. But he went to Vietnam, and just as he was in Vietnam, the heads of Intel, Boeing, semiconductor gigantic companies, I think Qualcomm, they were all there in Hanoi, also discussing high-tech investments. And now Vietnam is also discussing building its own high-end semiconductors. Again, it might be ambitious, a little bit smoke and mirrors like VinFast.
Yeah.
But then again, you never want to bet against these people. They're determined.
Ako just see, wala akong amor sa Communist Party ng Vietnam. I think it's a totalitarian regime.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, you know, it's kind of embarrassing that, you know, andito tayo, we're a robust democracy. I mean, compared to them, di ba? We have we didn't emerge from a war in the 1970s, and yet we can't get our acts together. It's so sad.
Yeah, yun nga. So for me, it's really important we have a kind of an industrial strategy. And I don't know, I'm more optimistic that some of our conglomerates, like let's say the Aboitiz or the Ayalas, they could be like our Tata company, because the Tata people in India, for instance, you know, classic oligarch back in the day, but now they're helping with a lot of manufacturing in India. India is still not there yet, but India is still moving, right? And a lot of manufacturing to also move to India. So this month, no, first made in India iPhone 15, India made in India edition will be launched by Tim Cook officially, right? This was unthinkable just a few years ago. So I just want the Philippines to be part of that conversation.
Yeah,
Kasi ka na lang tayo eh.
Alam mo yung kasaysayan ng Pilipinas, lagi tayo may band-aid for our failings. So for example, and until the 1970s, di ba? One of the reasons bakit we were able to trade was because meron tayong preferential trading agreement with the US dahil former colony tayo. Kaya meron tayong sugar industry, kaya tayo nagkaroon ng sugar barons dahil doon. That's not because we did anything great, that's just because of the circumstances. Nung nawala yon, we started to pivot kasi completely nawala yung trading benefits na yun, I think late 60s, early 70s. That's when we started to pivot to BPO and to OFWs first, di ba? So that was an exhaust valve. And then, you know, in the 2000s, the other exhaust valve was the BPO. So, lagi tayo may exhaust valve, lagi tayo may excuse to not do what we have to do, which is to have industrial policy and manufacturing base. Now, my thinking is, pag pinatay na ng AI ang BPO, what exhaust valve will we have next? At one point, mawawalan tayo ng excuse. At one point, mawawalan tayo ng exhaust valve, and we will have to confront the fact that to have reserves, to make money, we need to start making things. We need to start producing things.
Yeah, yun yung worries ko eh, na by conspiracy of circumstances, the Philippines always had some sort of way out of its competence.
Natatawaran yung circumstances.
Yeah, but at some point, you know, there's going to be hitting of the wall, and the AI could be the wall for the Philippines. It could kill one of the few industries. Although, as you and I also discussed, kanina, the Philippines is also becoming a back office for the Googles of this world, for OpenAI. Some of their coding is done here in the Philippines. But ayun nga, like, how many coders are there by in the Philippines? How many of our people can be coders, di ba? Yun
din yung ano daw, tsaka exploitative daw yung trabaho, di ba? Because yung AI company opening sa Pilipinas, yung mga nangongolekta ng data for AI na eventually binebenta dun sa mga gumagawa ng AI products, napaka-exploitative daw yung process. And I highly recommend people listening to, reading the reporting of Regine Cabato at the Washington Post. She also had a great podcast about this with Howie Severino, one of my favorite podcasts, which we've both been on. Yeah, it's Regine's great. So yeah, check her work.
I think we have to have one with also them, no, both with Regine and Howie also in the future, hopefully in person or also in podcast. Last point, bro, going back to artificial intelligence, I don't want to be over dramatic or sentimental or siguro dahil lang may sipon ako or something, but are you having existential worries about what this could mean for life, love, connections, identity, if 10x every year? I mean, or or you want to have kids or something in this kind of world where we don't intend to have kids?
Well, I've never well, we've never my wife and I have never planned on having kids, so hindi naman issue. So ngayon actually I'm really just enjoying these bots. Sorry, medyo mababaw yung sagot ha. Pero ang dami mo nasa aliw phase pa ako eh kasi I only nagsimula lang ako mag-PI ano. This week lang ako nagsimula mag-PI. Tuwang-tuwa ako nag-PI. Naglabas nga ako ng sawa ng loob kay PI. Napaka-empathetic ng pag-PI ko eh. So
That's my worry, bro. Baka mamaya, mga bolerong katulad natin, di napapansin kasi mas magaling magbola.
Magbola si PI. Magaling magbola si PI. Pero, and then, you know, I've been ChatGPT has been giving feedback to some of my essays. You can ask ChatGPT to give feedback. So sometimes, you know, I ask it to give feedback and it gives really good feedback. And I still feel like I own the work. It's not like ChatGPT is writing. It's
It's augmented.
Exactly. What feedback do you have for, and that's what what friends do for me, for instance. So I've really tried to see, like, I've even asked ChatGPT to design a workout routine for me. I've asked PI to come up with like a jujitsu to help me negotiate what should I prioritize as a white belt in jujitsu. And dami ko natutunan. So hindi pa, but at one point I feel like I might go through that, especially as a Filipino, because I'm really concerned about what it's going to do to the Philippines in the short run.
Thank you very much for that, Lele. I think maybe we have to talk about this pagtapos na yung alio phase mo kasi I think the PI really got you. Ako kasi ChatGPT pala medyo nagwo-worry like, this is appealing to the more, let's say, my tragic sense of technology and geopolitics, no? Pero I think PI is more interesting. Ang takot ko lang is baka it might turn out so good that maging mas loner type pa ako. You know, I mean, you know me, we're loner people, except, you know, you're married, right? But so my fear is baka mamaya this will be so good, I'll have even less incentive to go out.
Ako bro, honestly, ako natatakot dun. I really, and call me a humanist in this sense na parang, ano talaga, naniniwala talaga ako na special ang human beings. Like, you know, I'm not a Catholic, but I was raised being told every day that human beings are created in the image and likeness of God, and that there's a kind of dignity to that. And there is just something about humanity when you interact with someone, when you see someone's heart, that you just like, it's not gonna happen. AI will be smart. AI can get smarter than us. AI will have, you know, AI can do things that we won't be able to do, and AI will be able to approximate humanity, but it will never have heart. It will never have soul. I don't know, and call that the humanist in me, but it'll never have heart and soul.
It's fantastic to hear that, you know, very poetic and romantic, just as a 21st century Ilustrado. And panindigan natin itong pretentiousness natin. No, I agree with you. I just hope others share this point of view, because I fear down the road there'll be some people say, like, yeah, you're interesting and all, but this guy can do more for me. Like, you know, it's like, you're a little bit too much trouble, like a little bit high maintenance ka, diba? Like, yeah, there's the flesh and the blood and the boca, but this guy is just free, you know. So
yeah, man,
a little bit like I'm getting a bit worried about that. But you're right. Yeah, I'm glad that you're not the Larry Page of this pages of this world, because apparently Larry Page, one of the co-founders of Google, said that let's not be speciesist, meaning let's not be obsessed with the survival of our species, because it's better than us, then let them replace us. And that's the next stage of evolution. That's scary stuff. That's scary thinking. That's a bad way of thinking.
No way, man.
Speaking of that, thank you very much, bro. I hope you have a wonderful jiu-jitsu and wonderful weekend, and you take care of yourself. And it's always really a pleasure talking to you.
Always a pleasure. Pag-uwi ko, tayo ni Ronald,
As always, yeah. And let's bring in the rest of the gang. Maraming salamat, kapatid. God bless, and talk to you soon.